Hey, this is going to be a really quick video on how to make and use a moose call. Basically, a moose call, all it is a big bullhorn. You can use almost any material to make it. I've used fiberglass, actually one I bought from years ago from a fellow that was the Canadian world champion a number of times for moose calling. I've used birch bark. I've even seen someone use, one of those orange pylons that were beside the road. He grabbed one on the way up to moose hunting. He called in a moose. The other thing is, if you listen to the tapes, the sound of the moose doesn't have to be perfect. Well, the first time I heard a cow moose call, I actually thought I was listening to another hunter, and his call wasn't very good. It was a cow. For my hunt this year, I don't have an adult tag. I'm in a zone that there's almost no tags given out. And so we're calf hunting. Using a call still isn't a bad idea because you try to call in the bull. He may have a cow with him already, and that cow may have a calf. And I did experience that once. It was an interesting hunt. I was in a swamp in a river system that was 1 to 2 kilometers away from another camp, and apparently I was driving them nuts. Early morning when things are nice and quiet, they're out there just sitting, and they could hear a cow call clearly and they could hear moose on their side of the area responding. On my last day out, I canoed out and I portaged into a lake, and there was a fellow sitting there. I said, well, I'll do you a favor. I'll do some calls, and you can see whether or not those moose that never came to me, the moose that I had responding were actually from my side. So, see whether or not I couldn't help them out a bit. I did a set of calls, waited about 10 minutes, did a set of calls, waited another 10 minutes, and just before I left, probably about 15 minutes after that, I did another set of calls. Never heard a response. I took off. I had to paddle out back to my truck. I wanted to get out before dark. And he had 3 moose come out. The dumb bugger shot them all. So he ended up, and they're in the water. So he ended up having a heck of a time with him and his buddies trying to clean up the meat and get it back to their camp. So they were working all night. Lesson from that is, don't shoot them all. Shoot one, clean it up, and if you still have more tags and more time, then go back hunting. But that was insane for them. Anyway, that was just a short story. Now what you want to think about is when you call, there really only are 2 calls to think about. The main one is a cow call. That is a cow in heat calling to a bull moose to say, where are you? Why don't you come in? Why don't we have some fun? And to do that, the word is earn. That's the word to remember. Earn, like something you bury somebody in, like ashes. So what you do is you just plug your nose, because it gives more of a nasally sound to it, and you say earn. Now if you have a call in your hands, and I'll show this later, if you start down and you move up into the air with it, it takes the sound and moves it just like a cow would do. She's really trying to say, this is urgent. I have an urgent need you need to fulfill. And the other thing before I forget is you can sometimes end with a woo boo 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 boo. I've never actually heard a cow do this, but the bulls go crazy for it. So it's like, that was taught to me by an old Frenchman who had hunted moose for like 45 years, and he called them in and successfully called them in with that. It just drove the bulls crazy. The other call is the grunt. And if you're grunting because you want a bull to be agitated and to come in looking for another bull, it's actually very easy to do. It's just it's I've actually seen, when I've called a bull in, every step he makes is as he crosses through the water. Unbelievable. When you do have one responding, it is one of the most exciting things you'll ever hear. You know, turkey hunting is pretty good, but moose hunting, when one is responding and coming in, my last tip is, if he's coming in, shut up. One thing is, you're identifying exactly where you are, and he's going to try to come into that spot or try to come in downwind, you know, 100, 200 yards downwind where maybe you can't see him, and try to get a sense of who it is. Because don't forget, you're in his backyard, and he knows that he knows what moose are in the area, and he wants to get a good sniff to see whether or not it's one that he thinks he can take on or one he should avoid. So if he's coming in, shut up. He knows approximately where you were when he was even a kilometer away. You don't want to have him pinpoint you right down to there's some chucklehead sitting under a tree. So I think those are the keys. If you do that, you can be pretty successful. I have been. So let's make a birch bark bull call and or moose call. Normally, again, they're used to call the bulls in, but sometimes, out of curiosity, the female will come in. Not often, but if she's with a bull and he happens to be a bit greedy and want to see about this other female in his area, he'll come in, she'll follow, and you've actually got 2 sets of eyes looking for you. And if there's a calf, 3 sets of eyes. There's 2 calves, enough. So the one thing about birch bark is, if you go and cut it off a tree all the way around, you've effectively killed that tree. What I'm using here today is a birch tree that blew down, and you can see right here, I've cut up for firewood. And so what you want is the biggest piece of birch that you can find, without, like that one over there, without a big knot in it, because that's not going to help you. Nice smooth piece of birch. Hey! Yeah, so here's not a bad block of wood. It's about as small as you want to go. You know, bigger would be better. But what is nice about it, you can see there's no knots, except for that one, that you got to cut around. So all you want to do now is, if you take a look, you can see the edge here. That's wood to here, and it's a piece of bark right to there, and then the paper on the outside. So let me just show what that looks like. That's really part of the bark, but it's very woody. See that? That's that brown piece, the dark brown in there. And then there's the paper. So all you do with this is you'd cut it. Any sort of saw will cut that, peel it off, and you've got a piece of wood like this, a piece of bark like this. Now, the simple thing to do is, it's got to be still somewhat wet. If you've got a piece of wood that's not damp on the inside, you're going to have a heck of a time rolling it up. You can soak it. Put it in water overnight, and then you'll be able to manipulate it, and then, of course, let it dry out. So all you want to do with this thing is make a funnel from it. Doesn't matter how tight you make it when you first make it, because you can trim it later. There we go. Now if you want to do it quick and dirty, what you do is you take a self-threading screw, just a little short one, screw it in here, and you're actually good to go. The other possibility, and this is what they do where I hunt, we use black electrical tape for everything but electricity. If you can get it off the roll, there we go. There we go. Once you get it as tight as you want it, and run a loop all the way around. Now, final step. If you want to make this pretty, what you do is, with a little drill, about 1/2 inch in, even 3/4 of an inch, put holes, maybe 1 inch or 2 inches apart, up the side of your horn. And then take what looks nicest is a piece of leather, and you can buy leather shoelaces for that purpose, and you just take them and thread them through the holes. It'll hold it together nicely, and it'll look really, really good. Lastly, see up in here, it's a bit rough. You can trim this off. So just take a really sharp knife and trim it. Easier way is any kind of saw. I like using like a hacksaw because it makes a nice fine cut. If you got a power saw, like a bandsaw or something like that, run it through and you're good to go. You can do the same thing in the mouthpiece if you want it larger. So that's a personal preference. There's a size I like, so I'm not gonna do much with that. So now you've got a bullhorn to call in moose. And when you're holding it, here's what you do. Just plug your nose, put your mouth over it, and start calling. Start low, finish high. Sound as lonely as you can, and they're gonna come in. So good luck with your hunt. See you in the north.